Okay, in this video we are going to create our first program in Python. It's going to be called Hello World, and I'm on a Macintosh system, but you can follow the directions pretty much 99% up idle. So I've got idle down here in my dock, but if you're also on a Mac you may not. Even in Windows 10 there's a search bar, but for Windows users it's in the lower left hand corner if you have that feature installed. You can just type in idle. You could even type in Python, but idle is what we want. And that opens up idle. Quick quiz for you. Is this the shell or the editor? Well, yes, this is the shell. Now there's two ways you can tell. First of all, it says shell right here. But there's another way you can know, and that is the three arrows right here. So it's expecting input. Second question, do you remember how I want you to think of the shell? In what way do I want you to think of the shell? I want you to think of the shell as a glorified calculator in a way. We can write programs in the shell, but it can also do pretty good arithmetic calculations for us as well. So 5 times 8 is 40, so on and so forth. Our program is going to be written in the editor, so we go to File, New File. On a Mac, if you want the shortcut key, that would be Command N. But on a Windows machine or Linux machine, you would hit Control, hold the Control key, and then N. And that opens up the editor. Okay. So the first form of this program is simply going to print Hello World to the screen, and that's it. So let's add a new word to our vocabulary, and it's the function keyword print. Now all functions, when you use functions or methods, they're sometimes called methods, they need an opening parenthesis and a closing parenthesis. Now what I want to print is a string, so I'm going to use single quotes. I could use double quotes, but I'm partial to the single quotes. And then hello world. And that's my first program. That's the first form of this program. So in our vocabulary now is the word print. It is a method name. It's a method keyword, so you can't use print for a variable name. Let's save this document. So I go to File, I choose Save, and on a Mac you could use Command S. On Windows you could hit Control S, or Linux you would even use Control S. Now I would encourage you to have a Python folder somewhere dedicated on your hard drive for storing your files. If you're using a computer lab, make sure you're following the instructions that your school teacher is giving to you, your instructor. You don't have to follow my directory system here. But the way that I want you to name your file, and this is a good habit I want us to follow into right now. First comes the program name. And so this program name is called Hello World. Then a period, then your first name, then a period, then your last name, then a period, and then PY. All Python files should conclude with .py. Save. I have to replace because I'm replacing the old one. And there we go, we've saved our file. Now I'm going to run, and I'm going to choose Run Module. And there's also a shortcut to running the module too. So for you Windows users and for you Linux users, all you have to do is hit the F5 key, which is about the middle of the very top row of your keyboard. But for us Macintosh users, to access the function keys, we have to hold the FN key in the lower left-hand corner and then choose F5 from the top row. So I'm just going to run module here from the menu, and boom, there it is, Hello World. Now notice what just happened. I typed the program in the editor, but when I ran the program, it ran the program in the shell. And so this is how those two windows communicate with each other. Long programs are written in the editor, but when they're executed, if there are no errors, then they execute in the shell. And so my program has done exactly what I wanted it to do. It has printed Hello World. I can close the shell without fear of closing idle because I've at least got one window open. But notice what happens if I close even this window. Idle itself closes, and that's not what I wanted. So you have to have at least one window open if you're going to keep idle open. I'm going to open recent. Now, let's work with our first variable. Our first variable, we're going to call it person. You can name your variables pretty much anything you want, except there are some rules. You can't use a keyword, so I couldn't use print as a variable name. You also can't have spaces between parts of a variable name. Spaces are not allowed. Underscores are allowed, so that would be fine. You also can't begin the variable with a number or a special symbol like exclamation point or a hashtag. You can't start a variable with special symbols like that. Well, this is my variable called person. I'm going to add a new function keyword to my vocabulary, and it's called input. Remember, all functions need an opening and a closing parenthesis. Well, what am I going to input? What is your name? Now, what input does is it waits at the keyboard for the person, we're going to call them the user, to type in some information, in this case their name. And then once that's typed in, it's going to be stored in the variable called person, which notice the variable is on the left-hand side. So what you could not do, let me show you an example of what would not work in Python. You could not say input, what is your name, equals person. That does not work. And the reason is because this equal sign is called an assignment statement, which means it takes what's on the right-hand side of the equals and stores it into what's on the left-hand side of the equals. The reason why this doesn't work is because this is my variable name. So line 2 is the line that's going to work. We're going to input our name, and it's going to get stored into the variable named person. So you got to make sure that when you're using assignment statements with a single equals, your variable is on the left. In other words, the container for the information on the right-hand side of the equals. Now I'm going to use the print method again, hello, but I'm going to use it in a different way than I did before. I'm going to use its comma feature. So notice I have an opening and a closing parenthesis. An opening and a closing single quote, and then a comma, and then I'm going to type the variable name, and then close parenthesis. Let me, on my Mac, do Command S. That saves the file. And now I'm going to hold my function key in the lower left-hand corner, and F5. For you Windows and Linux users, you don't have to do that. Just hit F5. That'll run the file. Now look what it says. It says, hello world. What is your name? So it's waiting right now for me to say the name. And I will say John. I hit enter. And look, hello, John. It printed out my name. And hopefully if you followed me line by line on this and you typed in your own name, it'll say hello, comma, and then whatever your name is. And that's how it works. There's our first program in Python. It really is a wonderful first learning language. It's actually pretty powerful in its own right. A lot of big companies use Python, but I don't see C++ and Java going anywhere anytime soon. So this is a good first learning language. And if you really enjoy programming, if this is something you like to do, and you think God has made you for it, has developed your mind for this kind of stuff, I would encourage you, after you learn your first language, to branch out on your own and to start trying to pick up other languages. And the really cool thing about that is that once you have your first programming language down, it takes a lot less work to actually pick up another language. Unless you're going to something really rudimentary like assembly, which I'll just be honest, assembly's tough. Assembly's tough. But I'll tell you what, you master assembly, you are the absolute master of your computer. You can make it do anything you want. Okay, I'm rambling on here. Wherever you are today, God bless you.